All right. Hello, Hackcon. I am so excited to be here. My name is Swift. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a little outfit that some of you might have heard of called Major League Hacking, or MLH. Um, I've been trying to figure out exactly. I think this is my 17th Hackcon, which is insane to think about. But we used to run them twice a year when the community was getting started, and then we also have brought them all over the world to places like Europe and India. And I have been at every single Hackcon. Officially, I think I now have the record handily because Richard from DevPost and Evan from Brandmakers could not be here with us this weekend, unfortunately. But I'm stoked, and I want to open today by telling you about why joining this community was literally the most important decision I ever made in my life, and how this is easily one of the most exciting times in history to be sitting in your shoes. And I could not be prouder and feel more privileged to be able to help you navigate what I think is going to be an incredible year for us ahead. Uh, yeah, there you go. Yes, okay, there you go. Yes. I'm glad I'm not the only one who feels that way. And then I will call out that it's amazing. I've been giving this keynote for, like I said, I've done it 17 times at least. I feel like I've never been more nervous than when I have a 2-year-old sitting in the audience watching me. So, fair warning on that front. All right, let's dive in. So, for those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Swift, as I said. I'm the CEO and co founder of Major League Hacking. Now, I did not start out wanting to be a technologist. My parents were very traditional people. They believe in degrees that have careers attached to them: doctor, lawyer, accountant, and nothing really in between. So, when I went off to university, I was really dead set on becoming a lawyer. And at the time, I had to work my way through school. And so when I came to university, I did the thing that any enterprising young university student would do. I went on the school's job board. I sorted the jobs by how much they paid, and I applied for every single job that paid the most, indiscriminate of what it was. Of course, that was an awful idea at the time, and it's still an awful idea today. And literally only one company wrote me back. And in hindsight, I'm pretty sure they were desperate because literally they invited me to come in and interview for a programming job for somebody who had never programmed before in their life, as the only programmer on staff writing the accounting software for the business in PHP of all things. So that's just to frame this situation a little bit. Now, I went in for that interview and I literally told them, I'm excited about technology. I love this stuff, but you might be better off hiring literally anybody with any experience. And for, again, I think desperation, they decided to take a chance on me. I literally showed up day one of my job with a Sam's Teach Yourself PHP in 21 Days book. I figured I would read the book on the job and either I'd be gainfully employed after 3 weeks or I would be right back where I started and maybe I'd know how to program. So uh, I had that job for several years and it was awesome. Clearly, it worked out. But I never told anybody about it. At the time, I thought that software engineering was this thing like Dilbert and cubicles. None of my friends were interested in startups or tech. They were a bunch of aspiring lawyers and things like that. And so it was just something that I was honestly kind of embarrassed about. A few years into my journey, a friend found out that I programmed, though. And he came running into my room, burst through my door, and said, "Hey, I hear you code. I'm going to this thing this weekend called a hackathon. You have to come with me." Now, I'd never heard of a hackathon before, and when he described this to me, it sounded like something that elite programmers did, not a complete beginner who wanted to be a lawyer. But through some poking and prodding, he convinced me to go with him. And we took a train about an hour away from where I went to school in New Jersey, proud New Jerseyan, to NYU for a hackathon. When I walked in the room, there were about 100 other students who had given up their weekend of doing all of the things that university students love to do to come back to campus, to come up with these crazy ideas for inventions and literally bring them to life over the course of 24 hours. And not just that, but then they were going to show them off to a room full of complete strangers. It was unlike any educational experience I had ever encountered before. I think I learned more in 24 hours than I had in my entire university degree up to that point. And I remember when I went home the next day, of course, I crashed from being awake for 24 hours. But when I looked myself in the mirror the next morning, I said, that was the greatest experience of my life. Forget being a lawyer, I have to be a hacker. And so I did the thing that felt really logical. I switched into computer science. I started showing up to these classes, and immediately I became deeply frustrated by what I found. There's a lot of great theory and things that would be really helpful if I already had a job and knew how to do the things that I needed to be a true software engineer. But in class, I was learning things that just weren't the type of practical problem solving, and I definitely wasn't using the latest and greatest tools. So I had to take my education to my own hands because the truth is you can't learn the skills that you need to become a software engineer in a classroom. Like me, you have to learn by doing. I did hackathons, I did internships, I did open source, capstones. I built a track record, I built confidence, I built a network that ultimately helped support me on my journey. And when I graduated, I was lucky to go out and find a job where I was able to go out to hackathons full time and help support other developers. And as I did that, I very quickly realized that I actually hadn't been alone on that journey, as lonely as it had felt. Literally anybody in the world, no matter who you are, whether you're coming out of a top tier computer science program, a state school, a boot camp, you're self taught. Today, in the age of AI, you've been a decade into your career and you're trying to keep pace with how quickly things are changing every day. All of us need a place where we can go and get our hands dirty with the code and the tools that matter in our careers. And again, build those same things that I had, the track record, the competence, the network that are ultimately going to go on to support you. And so that's why John and I, actually 12 years ago, as of this summer, founded a little outfit called Major League Hacking. Our mission was really simple: help anybody in the world who wanted to be a hacker to have the opportunity to do so, and to create a space where people from all backgrounds all over the world could come and actually get their hands into these code and tools and have the same type of community that I was so fortunate to find during my own journey. Now, when I started this journey at Major League Hacking, the community was tiny. We were lucky if we had one hackathon every couple of weeks that brew out maybe 300 people. Today, the MLH community, our busiest weekends have sometimes 20 simultaneous hackathons going on around the world with up to thousands of attendees. And from that small few hundred people in the beginning, we've grown substantially. Today, 1 in 3 computer science graduates each year here in the United States are members of the MLH community. I would estimate that across the entire United States, and that's just one of 90 countries around the world where we have community members, something like 10 to 12% of all of the software engineers employed full-time today here in the US are alumni of this community. And that number is only going to rise given the huge percentage of new grads that we're reaching as well. Now, MLH could not do that alone. The reason that's possible is because of all of the people in this room, the leaders on all of these campuses who are gathering hackers, who are creating the space for anybody to become a technologist. That's you. You're the ones who are doing this. And it's not just the reach, it's the impact as well. Because when you talk to our community members, almost half of them say that joining the MLH community, this community, changed their life, and they would not be where they are today without it. And I feel the same way. And I feel very confident that most of you in this room do as well. Probably all of you, to be clear. And to put all of this into perspective, because this community, again, has gotten so much bigger than I ever believed it could, and this is literally just day zero. We already have more than 1 million community members and alumni out in industry. It's such an incredible reach. I literally have been on calls for the past, I want to say, 6 months, and literally almost every single call I get on with one of our customers, somebody on the other side of the phone says, "Oh, MLH, I was a hacker when I was a student, and now I'm working at Google or GitHub or wherever." But we have truly, truly helped to shape the technology industry, as you'll see. And it's only going to get bigger. I'm so excited to share that the 2026 MLH season is officially live. It launched on July 1st, and it includes more than 60 hackathons from all the organizers in this room and many, many more on the way. We estimate that we'll have about 250 weekend-long hackathons happening this year alone, and those hackathons are going to be critical for preparing the next generation of tech talent for the new challenges of the world that we're going to talk about today. So, we're here at Hackcon. Now, this is the gathering point for the leaders of the hacker community. We've been organizing Hackcon since 2013, and a small anecdote I'll share is that at the first Hackcon, none of the speakers had organized a hackathon before. Literally, they were all in the process of doing it. Today, that has changed so much. The mix of people here, we have experienced attendees who've been doing this for years, people who are just getting started on this journey, but inevitably, every year we come to talk about the challenges of being a leader in this community and organizing these events that often are thankless and underappreciated for the impact that they have. But we, the people in this room, know exactly how powerful they are. And it is, as you'll see in a few minutes, really, really important to have other people to go through the struggle with together. And that's one of the best parts of Hackcon, is that we're all here to talk about the challenges and to have another person who can relate to them. Now, I know for a fact that there's one challenge that is on everybody's mind, and it would be impossible for us to come to Hackcon this year and not talk about it. So let's address the elephant in the room. Fundamentally, AI has changed the world. Now, Whether you're an optimist believer about the future of AI or a pessimist and you think that it's overhyped, it doesn't matter. The reality of the situation is that we are in completely uncharted new territory, no matter which side of that argument you fall on. What it means to be a software engineer has changed. We have transitioned from a situation, let's broaden this even beyond software engineering. Every person in the world, more or less, started their career as an individual contributor. Our job is to do the work, to actually be the one producing things. And a select few of us would go on to become managers in our career, responsible for helping the next generation of individual contributors actually be successful too. Today, every single one of us is starting our career as a manager. The difference is instead of managing people, we're managing machines. And that's a completely different skill set than what our entire economy globally has been prepared to support. And so it's going to have an outsized seismic impact on the world, no matter how you think about it. But the truth is, software engineers, programming, coding, that is one of the first things that has been changed. And that's our job, is to help people lead, or it is to lead people through this uncertainty. And I know, because I literally hear about this from tens of thousands of hackers a year, and I'm sure it's on every person here's mind as well, that there's a palpable fear in our community. There's a lot of people who are saying, maybe getting this computer science degree wasn't the best idea. Maybe I made a huge mistake. And to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of factors here at play, and it's really easy to conflate them. But I think that I want to give you what I think are the biggest, most important highlights here about why this feeling exists. The first one is those tech layoffs. Everybody remember those from a few years ago, 2022, when this all started? Well, the highlight news here is it's not over. I know that it's not in the media cycle in the same way that it's been, and certainly we've latched onto something new, which we'll get into in a second here. But the reality is, that yellow box in the corner there, since Hackcon last year when I was up on this stage, that's all the layoffs that have happened. It's not like this has been slowing down. And honestly, I wouldn't anticipate it getting any better between now and next year either. The reality is it's a really tough labor market. And that's broader than AI. I certainly know that because you can see that it started way before any of this. But there are people in the job market literally competing with new grads for roles that, frankly, they're overqualified for. But the reality is that everybody who's out there looking for a job is struggling. No matter whether you're 10 years into your career, you're 5 years in, you're just getting started, you're switching industries, whatever it might be, all of us are struggling. And again, I think that comes back to a number of macro factors. The other thing is that in the media, literally all you hear about is how AI is coming for coders' jobs. And I think that's, obviously these people have an incentive to say that, but, the reality is that it's the thing that you hear literally every day from all sides. We're bombarded with it. Literally pulling these 3 quotes was trivial. I could have pulled 100 of them up here for you. And so the only story you ever hear is that you made a mistake and that AI is coming for your job and nobody's actually able to go out and start their careers. Of course you're going to believe that narrative. It's just logical. Ultimately, I found myself believing it at some point. And I want that to be different for all of you. I want to get up here and I want to be the first person to tell you that our future is bright. I'm here to tell you that this is actually the single greatest time in history to become a software engineer. This is day 0, yes, of a new revolution. And my goal over the next few minutes is to convince you that what I believe is what you should believe too. So, first thing I want to share is that the future of the tech industry, last year I said, should be written by the people in this room. Well, I'm here to tell you that I am more confident than ever that the people in this room are literally writing the future of the tech industry, not some investors in the valley. Every single decision you make as part of organizing your hackathon, all of the things you do in your local communities between those events, the decisions you make individually as a leader, as a technologist, they are literally shaping the industry. No one is out there with a playbook in hand ready to go. You are literally writing the playbook, whether you realize it or not. This is such a rare moment. It is literally day 0 of a renaissance. Now, I'll give you a couple of data points here. And, I've been in my tech journey through the dawn of APIs, mobile computing, crypto, now AI. And this shift is unlike anything that has come before it. It is so seismic and touches so many different industries that ultimately it's created this moment where there's so much chaos and uncertainty. And the way to understand why this moment is so unique is to take a step back and look at how technology has been adopted throughout history and compare that to what's happening today. So this is the typical technology diffusion pyramid. The way that this usually works is that governments or large organizations start by adopting these nascent, high impact technologies. They get a ton of value out of that. It diffuses down to businesses because they're so expensive that literally only enterprise users can afford them. And then eventually it makes its way down to consumers. We can look at this at the internet, right? We think about how originally it was literally a network for government agencies to share information, how companies started latching onto that. And eventually we got to the age of internet access where literally every single one of us has a computer in our pocket at all time connected to this network. The same thing happened with mobile computing. The same thing happened with APIs. Literally, this pyramid and how technology diffuses has been going on for all of history, even predating the computing revolution that we know today. Now, AI is one of the first trends that has literally upended that pyramid. It has flipped it over. There's this study that I read recently from Microsoft and LinkedIn that said that 78% of users are literally bringing their own AI tools to work. That's insane. It literally, I mean, that is a complete inversion of the way that this usually works, where you show up to your job and somebody says, hey, here's what you're going to use. Instead, the people who are responsible for doing the work are the ones making the technology decisions. It's literally upended the way that enterprise top-down sales works in this environment. And that transcends way more than developers. Literally, I know so many people in my life who are not even a part of this community who are making these same decisions, bringing it to their job as a lawyer or an accountant or salesperson. Every single one of us is navigating this uncertainty to figure it out. Now, I know because I've been a part of this community since, again, 2011, about how powerful the preferences of developers actually are in terms of dictating where this industry goes. This stat has been rising steadily over the last several years, but more than 50% today of MLH alumni literally go on to introduce technologies that they learned at your hackathons into production at their first job out of school. And not only does MLH have this kind of longitudinal data to see how this has been changing, but we actually know now specifically which technologies people are actually introducing. And we can literally tie that back to decisions that you make at your hackathons around what to encourage and what tech tools people learn on. The things that you actually use during your formative educational years become your default tools in your tool belt that you reach for to solve problems. The technologies that you encourage your hackers to use have always gone on to do this. And this number is only going to get more powerful in this age where literally we've inverted the pyramid and now all of the power lands in the consumer to bring these technology choices into the workplace. So let me be really clear here. Your events are literally setting the technical agenda for the entire industry. Now, I know that might sound, far-fetched, hyperbolic, big, whatever. But the reality of the situation is we've been watching this unfold for years, and it is only more clear now than it's ever been before. And it's going to, the rest of the world may not have caught up to this yet, but they are catching on slowly. And what you have is so important for this and cannot be understated in terms of its value. Now, that presents a new challenge for this community. And this is what we're here to discuss this weekend at Hackcon. Every system we created, beyond hackathons, across the entire tech industry, has been designed to support a very specific profile of a developer. And I'll go into what that is in a second, but that has been completely upended, as you'll see here. And we need to literally throw everything we thought we knew about training technologists out the window and completely start from scratch. And normally that would be terrifying, but the reality is that I am more confident than I've ever been that this community is prepared for that challenge and that the people in this room here at Hackcon are going to be the ones having the discussion that ultimately brings us to this future. So the first point to make is that there's only 27 million software engineers employed worldwide today. That might sound like a lot. I mean, there's only a few hundred of us here in this room, but put that into perspective that there are more than 1 billion knowledge workers out there in the world. If 1%, literally 1% of those people become software engineers due to AI, based on our traditional definition of that part of their job is writing code and maintaining those assets, then we're talking about literally doubling the size of our industry overnight. And I think that that is a very, very conservative estimate based on what I know and what I have observed in just among friends who are not technical in terms of how they're bringing these tools to their jobs. I have a buddy who literally could not have possibly coded in his life up to this point, who is now maintaining an internal tool for his entire team that he made with AI. And I don't think that that is a random anecdote. I think that that is representative of a lot of what's going on out in the industry. The things that we have traditionally believed in when it comes to software engineers, this is the old model, is going to be completely upended. First of all, we believed that our primary communication language of the computer was code. We believed that having a computer science degree was the way to validate that you knew how to do these things. You're comfortable in an IDE, a terminal. Leak code and grinding away was a proxy for our skill and our ability to get a job. And internships were plentiful. Getting real world work experience where you went out into the industry was basically an expectation for all of us. Today, every single one of those things has been thrown out the window. Our primary communication layer is natural human language. Computer science degrees, none of those billion knowledge workers have them. Comfortable in an IDE and a terminal, literally none of them have even seen those things or could tell you what a terminal is. Leak code is a proxy for skill. If you've been out in the job market interviewing, you know that this has literally collapsed at the bottom and that no one knows how to evaluate technical talent right now. And internships, the job market that we just talked about, it's completely unrealistic to believe that we're going to be able to give real work experience to not only the people who are already getting computer science degrees, but literally doubling the industry and giving these opportunities to all of those people as well. It's just not going to happen. So that's the first problem. The second problem is in a labor market like we have right now, and in the dawn of AI, where you can literally automatically apply to every possible job on the internet, how do you stand out when literally anytime a company opens up a job application, they get inundated with thousands and thousands of resumes? How do you make sure that you don't get filtered out by the AI, that you actually have a chance to talk to a real human? It might be literally the best job in the world for you. You're the perfect fit. But if they never actually look at your resume because there's so many and they're so overwhelmed, there's no way we're ever going to make that match. The other problem here and the only solution to it is to learn by doing. AI is literally changing every minute. I can tell you from personal experience and from spending a lot of time with the technologists that are actually writing these AI tools that we're using every day, it is a full-time job and a half to keep pace with how quickly things change. Literally feels like every day there's a new model, a new tool, a new paradigm, something we should all be learning. And we all have competing responsibilities. I know you're literally getting most of you are students, and you're organizing a hackathon that frankly somebody would be full-time doing this and couldn't do half of what you're trying to accomplish. You're already overloaded. There's already so many things on your plate. How are you or any of the people in your community expected to keep pace with this? Well, the only way to do it is to actually get your hands into the code and tools and learn by doing. But there's another problem that comes up here, which is that it's basically taboo to talk about AI in school or in work. I'm sure everybody has a professor who's like, no AI, no AI. And then but you look at their slides or their notes and you're like, okay, they're definitely using ChatGPT to generate all of this. Similarly at work, right? Like when you go out into the job market, if you're not already experiencing this for your internships or some of your own work experience, you're going to show up and there's going to be restrictions about which tools you can use, whether you can, use that to do your job. And so meanwhile, you look on the internet and it seems like every person in the world is using AI to code or to do the parts of their job that are, mundane or easily automatable. And you're just sitting there doing it all by hand because it's just not allowed. So where are you supposed to go to get that hands-on experience? Where are we supposed to go to, differentiate ourselves in the market? Where are we supposed to go to build that checklist that we had about what it means to be a modern developer? Well, I have the answer. I think you all have the answer too. And that answer is hackathons. They are literally invented for this. Yes, that's very exciting. It's true, yes. Hackathons were literally tailor-made for this experience. Think about it. They are designed for us to take our education into our own hands, to deal with the fact that a classroom can never keep pace with how fast technology changes, to bring modern technologies and real-world employers together with developers to solve real problems. Literally, what we have been doing for the last 12 years as this community is the solution to this modern problem, and in such a compelling way. And not only are hackathons the solution for those 27 million software engineers and those several million people who are studying computer science, but it's also the solution for those billion knowledge workers who can adapt this format for their modern challenges, whether that's making films or art or whatever it is in this modern age. Thanks to AI, literally hackathons for all of those things are suddenly possible in the way that they were never before. And it's not like this is new, because literally for years, I've been getting up on stage here and talking about how more than 90% of community members, the attendees at your event, are learning skills at those hackathons that they literally could never have found in a classroom in the first place. If this number doesn't go to 100% by the end of this year, I would be floored, because frankly, there is no other space to do this. So that's a lot of big numbers, that's a lot of theory, but I want to put this into perspective by sharing a couple of stories about real people who are navigating this. The first story I want to share with you is a story of Dylan Vidal. Now, Dylan, we're proud to have him here with us. He is from the University of Central Florida, and he started his journey as a hacker. He was going out to hackathons, ultimately learning by doing, and he became super involved and passionate about the community down in Florida. And he ultimately went on to join the organizing team of Night Hacks, where today he's actually the president of the club. And it reminds me so much of the early days of hackathons to see Dylan and his community out and about. I was at BitCamp a couple months ago, which we'll talk about BitCamp a lot today, I think. But literally, they had brought a busload of hackers from Florida up with them to participate in this event. It was the type of community vibe and just awesomeness that I remember from the early days of hackathons. And Dylan is helping to build that community locally at his school, as well as to federate it all across the country. Now, last year, Dylan actually came out here to Hackcon with us to learn the best practices about organizing his hackathon, Night Hacks. And while he was here, he actually ran into the GitHub team and found out about a program that I'm sure we're all going to hear about this weekend called the GitHub Campus Experts. Now, Dylan had never heard about the Campus Experts before, and he'd never even thought about becoming one. But after his experience here at Hackcon, he realized it was exactly the type of leadership opportunity he was looking for. And he went on to actually join the GitHub team as a campus expert. And today, he is not only out supporting the community through Night Hacks, organizing locally, going out to hackathons, but he's also representing GitHub, helping to teach developers practical skills that they need to enter the industry. So all of this is, backdrop to this AI conversation. So how does that tie in here? Well, at BitCamp, when I saw Dylan, he actually was one of the first attendees to participate in a brand new prize category that MOH had brought out to all of our hackathons for the best use of Google Gemini. Now, I actually have a really short video that I want to play to show you a little bit about what he and his team made.
So we made Visual World, and we utilized Google Gemini as well as some prompting and RAG techniques to instead generate GLSL code, which we would then render here on screen using WebGL and 3JS. This is our little gallery view here. We have everything we've generated so far that we think is worthy of saving. This is a public gallery. Anyone who generates anything, you can go here, take inspiration, and even view the prompt that they use to better understand how Gemini can conceptualize these GLSL code snippet generations.
So my name is Richard Phillips. I worked on the front end functionality, getting speech to actually show on the website. Keywords like visualize the moon.
That's a low quality moon, but it works.
It's moving a little too. My name is Leonard. I was mainly the graphics guy. I was focusing on figuring out the techniques that the graphics needed to use so it could properly generate 3D.
Can we get a drum roll for our best use of Gemini? Visual World!
So Dylan and his team, let's give him a round of applause for that awesome project, yes. Now, let me be clear about what an incredible accomplishment that was. We literally had almost 220 submissions to the Gemini category at BitCamp. So to rise to the top of all of that was a pretty incredible accomplishment on its own. And the Google team took notice of this as well. And Dylan and his team actually had the opportunity to literally present their project to the entire leadership team of the product organization behind Google DeepMind. They're the people who literally build Gemini and all of these crazy AI tools that Google is putting out every day. He had the opportunity to talk to them about his experience using the tools, what it meant to actually use it at a hackathon, challenges, how they actually approached it. And ultimately, that impressed them so much that they invited Dylan to join Google's inaugural AI agent bake-off, which is basically exactly what it sounds like. But imagine the Great British Bake Off meets a hackathon put on by the team at Google. It was pretty cool, and it's on YouTube, and I highly encourage everybody to go and check it out. But the thing that I think is really important here, and the takeaway about Dylan's story, and the thing that inspired me so much, and the thing that I think every single one of us as organizers can take from it, is that the most valuable asset that Dylan has built is a public track record of leading with AI. He's using it. He's building communities that foster the usage of it. He has public artifacts like videos demonstrating his mastery of the concepts and what he's actually doing. And people are turning to him for his expertise. The proof? Dylan's a sophomore right now, and he literally just wrapped up an internship at NVIDIA as a sophomore. How does that happen? How do you stand out in a crowd like this? Well, again, I think it's about the track record, about the leadership, and about making sure that you're leading by example, actually being a part of this community and showing people the power of these tools. So hands-on AI experience is the most powerful differentiator in the market today, right now. That will not always stay true. Like I definitely will caveat that. But at this exact moment in time, the biggest lesson for you and all of your attendees, and the thing that we should be fostering if we want them to compete in this crowded job market where so many new developers are coming online and there's so much uncertainty, the best thing we can do is help them build the same type of public confidence and track record that Dylan has done, and help them follow in his footsteps to go on and ultimately help shape this industry. Now, I know for a fact that all of you are working hard on that already, and we at Major League Hacking want to make your lives even easier to do that. That's why I've been out on the hunt, lining up partners left and right who are literally building these AI tools to make sure that we've got you covered for any AI tool that your hackers need, whether that's GPUs or inference models or next gen, databases, the tools for RAG or vector search. We literally are lining up all of it and making it available to you and your hackers through the MLH Software Lab. Now, I'm excited to say that we have more than $50,000 in API credits for these tools and technologies. And in fact, there's probably another zero on that if I'm really being realistic about where this is going to go. But we have basically lined up a plethora of things for your hackers to use. Now, all of these tools already have generous free tiers. I want to be really clear about that. And in fact, people have been using these at hackathons forever. But as the industry progresses and as we start seeing more advanced usage of AI, which is, frankly, where this is going to go and what's going to happen, you're going to need access to paid tools in order to be able to do that. Well, MLH wants to make sure that your hackers have access to every single one of those things. And so whether it's you as an organizing team, hackers in your community, we want to make sure that you are connected with the free resources to help people hit the ground running and bring their dreams to life. And again, build that track record in public. So the other thing that MLH wants to be doing is leading where the industry is going. One of the wonderful things about having been involved in hackathons for literally 12 years now as an organization is we can see trends before anybody else can really see them and really put a fine point on them in terms of how important they are. One of the things I have been watching really carefully is how the use cases for AI are evolving in the projects that people make at your hackathons. It started with basic things like chatbots. Eventually, it went on to generative text generation. And there's a trend that I've been watching that literally has unfolded in the course of 6 months. Like, we're talking about a very tight timeline for this. But interest in visual use cases, so we're talking about things like image classification or computer vision in AI, has absolutely skyrocketed. It's up by 75% in just 6 months between December 2024 and May of this year. If that's not a leading indicator for the fact that this is going to be one of the most important categories of projects that get made this year, I would be absolutely shocked, and I would never believe that. So what is MLH doing to help ensure that as use cases like this emerge, and this is not the last one that's going to happen. These are literally going to show up every day, as we've heard already. Well, MLH is going to be out proactively getting the tools and resources to bring to your events to make sure that your hackers can actually bring their dreams to life and be a part of this wave of new projects and new technology that's being created to, again, differentiate in that market and stand out. So the first thing we're doing is we're upgrading the hardware lab with a suite of tools that enable AI vision related tasks. Yeah, this is really cool, actually. So not only are we expanding the hardware lab and bringing it to even more events this season than ever before, but we're also adding in all of these tools like webcams or ARM devices that are really easy to run embedded models on, robotics tools, things that enable a generation of computer vision AI projects that interact with the physical world. And you, as organizers here at Hackcon, have a really special treat, which is that the new hardware lab is actually here for you to preview. It has brand new modular cases and all kinds of cool stuff. So I would definitely check that out. It'll be out later today, but you'll actually be able to see all of the cool tools that we be bringing out to hackathons to get a feel for what's possible and what your hackers will have access to. Now, we've talked a lot about hackathons, but the truth is this community actually is broader than hackathons. It actually spans even further. And hackathons aren't the only hard thing that developers have to go through. In fact, as you heard in my story, I did things like internships and open source, and literally people are going out to your hackathons struggling with these same things, whether they're at that hackathon trying to land an internship or they're open sourcing their project and polishing it up. Well, ultimately, we at MLH have programs in addition to the Hackathon League to support people at every step along this journey. So, for example, we run one of the largest virtual internship programs in the world called the MLH Fellowship. We literally have a class graduating right now of about 150 technologists from a wide range of diverse backgrounds who are all building in public, whether it's contributing to open source, learning new skill sets for high in-demand careers that they never had thought about before. And not only are they able to do it for free, but they also get a stipend to help support them while they're going through this program, basically building in public. And we have a new thing that we've started launching this summer that I am really, really excited about, and that this fall will be available to all of you and to all of the hackers in your community, which is that we've started actually integrating the MLH Fellowship model, which again is this 12-week remote virtual internship alternative, into actual computer science curriculum at universities. So we have our first pilot live this summer. We have 3 different universities around the US who are actually offering their students internship experience for credit as part of their computer science degree to do the MLH Fellowship with us. So a group of students, yes, it's really, really cool. And we have a few partners that are rolling out this fall that I'm really excited about. One of them is a university that specifically focuses on transfer credit. They have a huge range of universities across the entire country, as well as Canada, who accept their degree credits as transfer credits into your university. So you could take a course through one of our partners, do the MLH Fellowship, have this amazing experience where you actually get hands-on with tools and get credit as part of your degree, even if we don't offer this program already at your school. And we have a whole pipeline of other universities will be adding this, but literally this will eventually be a sectioned course in a number of universities where you can literally enroll, learn by doing, get hands-on with code and tools, and build with a community that's there to support you all through MLH. Now, the way I think about that, MLH's job is to make the things that are hard less awful. Our job is to make them fun, interesting, engaging, educational. And the way that we do that is through the power of community. Literally anybody in the world could sit at home and build a hackathon project in their dorm room by themselves, but it's hard. It's lonely. Why wouldn't you go out to a hackathon where there's people and fun and it's energy and you get to learn and share that experience? Well, I think it all comes back down to community being this differentiator that ultimately makes these hard things less painful. And I want to tell you another story about somebody in our community who's doing exactly that. The next person I want to introduce you to is Cecilia Laplace. Yeah. My fun fact about Cecilia is she actually appeared in Dylan's video earlier, as you probably saw. Cecilia actually just graduated, we'll hear that story in a second, from university, but she hails from Arizona State, where she was actually an organizer for the local hackathon there. And during her journey as a hacker, which you're going to hear about in a second, I will not spoil the surprise, she started like I did. She didn't know that this community was for her, but she has progressively risen the ranks from hacker to organizer to leader. And now she's literally leading the conversation about hackathons in academia. She just got her PhD literally in hackathons. And I've got a short video here I want to play about her journey and what she accomplished. And then I'm going to tell you about how we can all learn from her experience here.
I'm Dr. Cecilia Laplace, and I study hackathons. I'm an MLH coach, a GitHub campus expert. I'm a founding organizer of SunHacks. I got introduced to GitHub about my sophomore year as part of an assignment, and we religiously used GitHub after that.
Major League Hacking and GitHub have been working together for the last decade to empower the next generation of developers. Watching Cecilia go from hacker to organizer to GitHub campus expert to MLH coach and now leading the conversations around hackathons and academia is such a powerful story.
Hackathons were the first place that I felt like I belonged. While I had that experience at a hackathon, I wanted to make sure that we were doing it on purpose, because doing it on purpose means now we can make actionable change toward having that much better of an event. I actually didn't decide to go to my first hackathon. I was dragged, and I ended up having the most amazing revolutionary time. I remember opening ceremony and feeling so energized. The thing that really got me was actually the MLH coach there. I thought, wow, that is such a cool job. After that first hackathon, my friend and I, the one who convinced me originally to go to a hackathon, we applied to every hackathon. Meeting so many other hackers, building the initial start of the community really gave me a place that I felt like I belonged. My friend and I said, can we get our university to pay for us to go to hackathons? And the way that we figured out we could do it was to apply for an undergraduate research project. I found that I really enjoyed research. The advisor that I worked with on that hackathon researcher project approached me and said, do you want to do a PhD with me? My dissertation research was looking at hackathons, how they are hosted, how they're attended, and how these interactions play a larger role in developing communities around them. I had my own experiences and hypotheses, but I didn't want to bias my research so much that I would only get the answers I was seeking, which led to first looking at community-based frameworks, which talk about how to characterize communities based on specific activities, behaviors, learnings, etc., to better understand what their experiences were. Are we really making the purposeful choices that truly inform how we best empower a generation that is being more outspoken about their needs and the ways that they can be supported?
Academic research in hackathons helps validate and inform all of the things that we have known to be true in the community for years.
In my research, I found out that hackathons are very much a choose-your-own-adventure. You could choose to do anything, even everything. Hackathons are definitely a competition, but you'll find that there are experienced hackers out there who are happy to team up with new hackers. And they love getting a chance to teach the new generation how to be amazing. As I was interviewing all sorts of different hackers, mentors, organizers, it was affirming to me to know I wasn't alone in some of my experiences. And I think it was affirming to them at times, because at the end, sometimes they'd say, I had no idea I'd done so much. Wow, looking back on it, I've come really far.
It's just so rewarding to work with organizations like MLH. We're very mission aligned.
As GitHub Education and MLH grew, we partnered to start empowering leaders of developer communities around the world by launching the GitHub Campus Experts Program. The GitHub Campus Experts Program is an innovative approach to empowering developer communities at scale. By giving the leaders of those communities access to training, tools, and resources, we can teach them how to reach even more developers than they could on their own.
To me, a GitHub Campus expert is someone who sees something in their community that they want to help change in a positive direction. I had every luxury of privilege and power given to me by these hackathons. I want everyone else to have that too.
We're so proud to have Cecilia in our community. We're proud to have her as a leader in the coaches program here at Major League Hacking. And a little plug, we are looking for more coaches for sure to help accommodate all this growth. So if you're interested in following in Cecilia's footsteps, you definitely should come and talk to our team about that. But honestly, the one lesson that I have for all of you about Cecilia that I think we can take away immediately is that the world needs to hear how powerful this community is. And it's the job of every single person in this room to help tell that story. Literally, there are not people who are better equipped to talk about it than the organizers who are building these communities, planning these events, and bringing together this next generation of technical talent. Now, MLH wants to support you on that journey too. And we've been coming up with some ad hoc programs that we're actually working on scaling this year. The first one is those two videos that you saw is a new motion that we've been doing at MLH to help produce stories about what's actually happening at your events. We've been publishing YouTube shorts and more produced videos like the one you just saw for the last 6 months. And I can say with confidence that they've helped bring a level of tangibility to your hackathons and to the work and the impact of this community and what hackers do that just didn't exist before. Now, we're in the early stages of scaling it, but I'm planning to be out at something like 6 or 7 hackathons this semester alone. And I know my co-founder John has a similarly crazy travel schedule. But ultimately, we're going to be there trying to produce these types of stories. And we want to make sure that you have a platform to talk about all of the amazing work you're doing. Now, in addition to creating these stories that are on the internet, we also want to bring people to your hackathons to experience this firsthand. And what I mean by that is that it's one thing when you're interfacing with somebody whose job is to go out to hackathons, whether that's a developer advocate or recruiter, but bringing an executive from a company to a hackathon to feel the energy, to meet your attendees, to see how powerful the work of these organizers in this room is a completely different thing. It's something that an executive sits around thinking they understand, but until they actually see it in person and they touch it and feel it, it's a different thing. And so this past semester, we started lining up keynotes from some of our partners for specific events in our community. We had people like Chantel, who's one of the founding partners at Reach Capital, which is a primarily female-owned VC fund. We had Paige Bailey at BitCamp, who is literally the developer relations lead for Gemini. She's literally the person responsible for helping to make sure that all of the developers in the world can use it successfully. And I'm excited to share that we've already lined up an amazing keynote for HackGT this year with Kyle, who is the COO of GitHub, who's going to be there helping to kick off the event and getting to see the impact of their work firsthand. Now, this is just the start. And so if you are looking for speakers for your event, we certainly cannot promise it to everybody, but one of my goals as part of this learning and something I'm taking away from Cecilia's video is it is critical for us to help connect the dots between the decision makers at the top of these organizations that are literally thinking about AI, thinking about the industry and where it's going, and the grassroots work that all of us in this room are actually doing every day. Now, other organizations are turning to MLH for support in this as well. It's not just hackathons, it's broader as well, as we talked about before. And one of the things I'm really excited to share today, and this is brand new, hot off the presses, is that if you're not familiar, there's this amazing event that Hacktoberfest, called Hacktoberfest, that DigitalOcean has been organizing for the last 10 years. Every year, about 150,000 developers get started with open source at this event that takes place throughout the course of the month of October. It's a safe space for anybody in the world to learn the skills they need to be a great open source citizen from the beginning. It's basically teaching you the mechanics of how to approach this terrifying thing called open source, where you may not feel like you know where to get started or have the confidence that you can actually contribute. MLH has been helping to support Hacktoberfest for the last 3 or 4 years coming out of the pandemic. And this year, we're partnering much more directly with DigitalOcean to help bring this event even further than it's ever been before. So we're going to be lining up a ton of content, highlighting things from our community, talking about the impact of developers in terms of what they're making in open source, how they're using open source tools, and what it means to contribute to open source in the age of AI. And this is one of the things that's going to be available to all of you is that during the month of October, if you want to organize a local event as part of Hacktoberfest, where you can either help people contribute to open source, talk about open source, do any kind of event format that you can think of, MLH is going to be helping to facilitate those events. If you're a member of our community, we will send you additional swag and resources and goodies to help make sure that your event is awesome and successful. We have a whole bunch of other programs I'm going to talk about in a minute here, just like that. But if you're interested in doing anything in October around open source, this is going to be a massive opportunity for us to reach a ton of these net new developers, people that should be joining our communities, attending your hackathons. And honestly, it's an incredibly valuable skill for the people in your community to learn and differentiate themselves and stand out. Now, Dylan and Cecilia are just two of tens of thousands of stories that I get to hear every year about amazing people within the MLH community. And I wish I could tell you every single one of them, but the reality is that I can't. And in fact, it's a privilege to be able to get up here and even have the time to talk about 2 of them. But for years, MLH has been doing this thing that I'm excited to announce is coming back called the MLH Top 50, where we curate 50 amazing, inspiring stories from the community, hackers, organizers, sponsors, partners, people who are helping to shape where this industry is going. And the MLH Top 50 is back again in force. The launch date is actually September 15th. Mark your calendars for it. Some of the people that you may have seen on stage, as well as many of the people in this room today, are going to be featured on the list. It's a secret, though, is who's on it until the 15th. So, keep that to yourselves if you're on it. But I'm really excited this is back. Again, I think storytelling and bringing the power of this community to the rest of the world is so important. And if there is one thing that you can do beyond the kind of practical AI skills that we were talking about, it's help create that platform where you can tell the story, the power of your work. So I do want to give you something practical. The last few slides I've got here for you are what I'm calling my playbook for hackathons, the AI edition. Specifically, I've got 3 specific bits of advice for all of you, coupled with some announcements about programs that we're launching at MLH to help support these specific bits of advice that I think we can all follow immediately. So, and the other thing I want to say before I get into this is, again, this playbook doesn't exist. You're literally writing it with me in partnership, and the people in this community, literally all of this comes from working with you, and I expect that it's going to continue to evolve. So I want you to feel ownership over the things I'm going to share here, and to feel like that Hackcon is a place to discuss them, to come up with your own iterations and best practices, and ultimately, again, help to define what it means to be a hacker in the age of AI. So the first thing I have to tell you, and this comes way back to the very beginning of MLH, when hackathons were frankly incredibly undiverse, unwelcoming places. And that has changed a lot in the last 12 years. In fact, today, more than 50% of the MLH community identifies as a part of an underrepresented group in tech. And that was not a happy accident. That was an intentional decision, doing things like implementing best practices, like having a code of conduct at every event. Well, let me tell you, the same things are going to hold true in AI. We need official policies. We need guidelines for people to understand what's allowed and what's not. And my honest advice, again, as you've heard here, is we should not be discouraging use of AI. And I recognize there are many hackathon purists, myself included, who think about hackathons as a space where you come and you learn by doing and create. And the activity of writing the code has historically been the point of the hackathon, right? Like, you don't show up with an existing project and present it as if you made it at the weekend. And so when we think about AI, it may feel like cheating, right? On some level, where it's like, okay, there are some people who are handwriting code still and some people who are using AI to generate it. And you as an organizer need to be the one setting the guideline, telling people what's okay, what's acceptable. And based on those guidelines, ultimately, that's what people are going to follow and pursue. And it's going to be the leading indicator of how the hackathon movement shapes out over the next few years. So my advice, and the advice that I have literally been following both in and out of MLH, is to embrace these things. No matter where you fall in the argument of optimists or pessimists around AI, the world has changed, and we need to be the ones creating a space where we tell people, hey, this is that safe third place. That's not a classroom. That's not work, where this is okay. And you can come and learn these skills, and you can be around other people who are going through the same things that you are. And so every single one of your hackathons should have an official policy here. MLH is in the process of drafting one. We have some initial guidance in our hackathon organizer guide at guide.mlh.io, which is basically an open source book about how to organize a hackathon. I encourage you all to check that out and to work on your own policies, work with your hackathon community manager at MLH to help define that. But ultimately, my goal is by the end of the year to have a public open source guidelines for using AI at hackathons that literally all of you can adopt and modify to make sure that it fits your events. But my main recommendation here is have the policy and explicitly encourage and say that the use of AI is acceptable. Because the reality of the situation is, isn't AI basically the 5th team member of every hackathon team at this point? Like, it's just basically where we are in the world, whether or not you're telling people that it's okay. And even if you have a policy that specifically precludes it, odds are people are still doing it the same way that they're bringing their own AI tools to work. And so we may as well embrace, and not only embrace, but lead, and take the opportunity to stand up and say what we think is the right way for the industry to evolve. Now, challenge number 2, we need to challenge preconceptions about what is possible with AI by literally showing people what it is. Now, the best articulation I have about this is that even people who literally talk about AI all day long on Twitter, X, whatever, Blue Sky, LinkedIn, as a rule of thumb, I have found it to be that most people, even when they talk about this stuff every day, all day long, still have no idea what AI can actually do. And the reality is that you have to actually show people in order for them to understand it. And I'll do the personal anecdote here. Like, even my literal job is to stay on top of these things, to find partners to bring in the MLG ecosystem, to help support you through all of this, to understand it in a way that a developer in our community will get value out of. And literally every day, I am blown away by the things that are possible, because I literally didn't believe they were, and then I proved myself wrong by doing it, or see somebody else do that. Now, you can literally learn from this by adapting your existing educational content around this fact. So an example of this is that during the opening ceremony of literally every single hackathon in the MLH network over the last 6 months, we have had a coach get up on stage during your opening ceremony and literally build a hackathon project in 2 to 5 minutes using AI live in front of everybody. Now, it's a very rudimentary chatbot app. It is not going to win the hackathon by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the first time that so many people have seen agentic coding, that it's more than just tab completion. To be really candid and clear, still today, the most popular AI coding assistant among developers in the MLH network, which again includes a third of all US computer science students each year graduating, is literally cutting and pasting code out of their IDE into chatgpt.com and then back into their IDE. That is literally 80% of what people do in AI coding today. And I know that might sound far-fetched, and I know you might look on the socials and see people doing things like Cursor or Claude Code or whatever it is, but the average computer science student has never heard of, thought about, or seen those things before, and it is our job to show them, not just to tell them it's possible, but to literally show them and give them a model that they can follow in the footsteps. There's another place we're doing this besides the opening ceremony, and that's through our workshop content. Last season, MLH had 2 amazing workshops that I'm really proud of. The first one was helping people get started with GitHub Copilot. VS Code is literally the #1 IDE in the world among developers, and Copilot is natively integrated into it in a way that is seamless and awesome, and you can use it with a variety of models and tools under the hood, and it is literally getting better every day. We've been running an introduction to Copilot workshop for literally a year now or 2 at this point. In addition to that, we also had a Getting Started with Google Gemini workshop at many hackathons this past semester. Now, the main pivot here, the thing I want to emphasize, the thing that you can take away and adapt to your own content if you're creating workshops, if you're thinking about onboarding materials, is we have pivoted these workshops away from more practical kind of like, let's build a project together, to literally demo time. Coming back to that point I just made, most people don't know what's possible. And the challenge that we're facing right now at hackathons is we actually need to inspire and show them and educate in a way that is less about practical, here's the importing this library, here's doing this thing. It's actually just get up on stage and run a demo so that you can understand how somebody would actually use these things. It's way more important to watch one of your peers actually try to use GitHub Copilot, actually try to use Gemini, actually try to use any tool today than it is to understand the mechanics of, oh, import this library, call this method. Because the reality, again, of the situation is that they're already using tools like these two to generate a lot of that code and to understand it. So the best thing that you can do as organizers is design your content around actually showing people what's possible. Now, MLH has also been organizing a handful of events designed at explicitly doing this. We've been calling it the MLH AI Roadshow. So far, we've had two stops. The first one was in New York City back in July, and the second one was out in San Francisco at the beginning of August. Now, these events are really unique. It is a mixture between a hackathon, a conference, and a meetup. It takes place over the course of just a few hours. And basically, the format is this. When you walk into the event, there are all of these stations around where you can literally get hands-on with the tools and technologies in a fun and engaging way. The first event that we held in New York City, which is the photo over here, was at an esports cafe where you could literally sit down at a computer and play a game using Google Gemini to generate your first project. So think Mad Libs, where you pull 3 themes out of a hat and then you had to vibe code a project in 2 to 5 minutes and then show it to the other people in your group. Another example from San Francisco, we recreated a living room environment where we literally handed every attendee a laptop as they walked into one of these stations to sit down and try to recreate a TV commercial that they just watched on using VO with Google. Now, these are fun activities that happen to also teach you a practical skill on the other side. It's like a bait and switch. The number of people who came in saying, oh, I know AI, I know Gemini, I know what these things do, and then walked out and I literally heard them say, wow, I had no idea I could do that, is uncanny. Now, we paired that up with inspirational keynotes from some of the leaders at MLH and Google, and then we finished it off with a fun networking event that was a bit like a hybrid between a party and a professional meetup. But ultimately, these events were incredibly successful. We had something like 2,300 people register for these events, and we literally had to turn away about 400 to 500 people at the door at them because they were so popular. And it is not just students, it is everybody at all levels who wants to participate in these things. And so all that is indicative of exactly what I've been telling you, which is that we need a third space to learn these things, to get comfortable, to be inspired, to feel confident. And so we're taking this on the road. And I'm really excited to announce our next stop on the tour, which the thing I'm most excited about this is that we're pairing it up with an amazing hackathon in our community that has been literally doing great work since day zero of the MLH journey. And the next stop on the tour is going to be at Hack Texas in October on the 17th. So if you are from Texas and you're going to Hack Texas, yeah, give them a round of applause. That's awesome. The roadshow will be there. If you're interested in bringing this type of content to your hackathon, we're thinking about it as a kind of load-in pre-event day. So this event is happening on the Friday before Hack Texas, where local attendees can come out and participate in it, as well as members of the Austin community. But we want to bring this around the world. We have 2 more stops happening after these. I will spoil the surprise for all of you. We're going to go to London, and then we're going to go to Bangalore. So if you're in either of those cities, you have friends out there, we'll share the announcements with everybody in the community. But my hope is that in 2026, as we enter the new year, I can line up an enormous slate of these roadshows at all of your hackathons. I'd be able to bring a ton of hands-on AI training up front to help people get started in your local communities, and maybe even bring it to your campuses in between those hackathons too. So, third and final lesson here. We need to create spaces where the community can struggle together. Literally, I said up front, the number of people who are terrified right now, they made an awful decision getting into computer science, thinking about being a career in programming, is so high. And ultimately, it's lonely if you don't have other people to go on that journey with. And we need to create a space where people can gather and they can talk about what's going on and not feel alone. Frankly, that's going to be one of the major benefits of Hackcon for a lot of us, myself included, is getting to hear the stories of our peers and realize that we're not on this journey by ourselves. And so you need to create spaces where ultimately you can bring those types of empathetic, community-driven environments to the people in your community, whether that's at your hackathon, hosting meetups for people to talk about the struggles, getting an internship in the job market, or learning about practical skills with AI, talking about what they don't know, their fears, things like that. And ultimately, hackathons really only happen once a semester, maybe for most of us. And so we need to be doing that in between our hackathons too. My mic is cutting out a little bit here. We need to be doing that in between hackathons too. And so we've actually started partnering up with a couple of amazing organizations to literally help you do exactly that. The first one I want to talk about is a partnership that MLH started with the Google Gemini team back in March. This is a 3-year partnership where we're going to be helping to literally bring these hands-on AI training experiences to you at your hackathons and in your local communities. And Google is deeply committed to this mission of helping to create these safe community spaces for people to navigate this unprecedented challenge together. And so the first program we're launching as part of this is what we're calling MLH Hack Days. Anybody here can get up to $350 in funding to bring your community together in between hackathons for shorter events. I think the official number is 6 to 12 hours, but if you want to do something shorter, we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And ultimately, it's a place for you to gather your community, teach them something practical. MLH will ship you a box of swag and goodies for the event. We'll give you a playbook on how to run it from soup to nuts, everything from an opening video, some educational content about AI that follows the demo time advice I just gave you, and we'll reimburse you for pizza for every person who shows up at the event. And this is just the first of many of these events we're going to do. For the Gemini Hack Nights, we're anticipating more than 250 of those to happen between now and March of next year. We've already piloted a few of them with some of the organizers here in this room, and we anticipate doing a lot more. You can do this up to once a quarter. In addition to the Gemini Hack Nights, which is the first Hack Days, which is the first one we launched, I'm really excited to preview another thing that's coming very quickly with our friends over at GitHub, who have exactly the same commitment to helping this community make sure that it navigates it together and has a safe space and a useful and practical hands-on learning space. And that's what we're calling Finish Up-a-thons. So 60 to 70% of the people at your hackathons want to keep working on their projects after the event ends and don't have the resources or support or means or inspiration to go and do that. And we're teaming up with GitHub to help create this safe space for you to literally take your hackathon projects and polish them up to differentiate yourself in this age of AI, which we've talked about is so much more important. And so if you want to bring these type of events to your community to help them literally, talk about and articulate the value of the hackathons and the experience they have going to them, that's a resource for you. So way more like this coming. Right now, Hack Days are live. You can literally sign up here at Hackcon to bring it to your community. And I would love to see every single organizer in here at least trying to do something in this vein. There's way more of this coming, but ultimately our goal is to literally have the world's best suite of resources for you to gather your communities and teach them practical skills. That QR code goes to the sign up link as well if people are interested in that. I'll come back to that later. So let's summarize. Have an AI encouraged policy. If you don't know what the policy is, you're going to make guesses and it's going to be bad for everybody. Be explicit about it, encourage it, ensure that this is a safe space, a third space that people can actually get hands-on with these tools to learn by doing. Demonstrate what's possible. You cannot just tell people it's okay. You have to actually show them in order for them to get it. Again, even executives or people or developers whose literal full-time jobs is to stay on top of this stuff are inspired and blown away by what's possible. It literally changes every day. And third, foster safe community spaces is a challenging time. We're not naive to that. I know you're not naive to that. I know everybody in this room is struggling with it the same way that we are at MLH. And ultimately, the best support network we have is this community and bringing people together to make sure that they don't feel alone, to make them feel like they didn't make a bad choice, and to make it feel like they have other people who are on the struggle together. So again, this playbook does not exist. We are writing this playbook together. The people in this room here at Hackcon this weekend, this is my challenge to you. Use those bits of advice I just gave you. Use your own personal experiences and beliefs, and let's work together to write this playbook to define what it means to be a technologist in the age of AI, and ultimately how that translates to serving the tens of thousands of hackers that go to our events, that are part of our community, and the millions and millions more that are coming in the next generation, who we literally need to completely rethink everything we've thought about for literally a generation and to support them. Now, you're not alone on that journey. You have the full MLH team, and especially these three amazing superstars, our Hackathon community managers, who are here literally to help you with anything. No problem is too big or too small for anybody at MLH. We have this value we call taking out the trash. Whether you're the CEO, the janitor, if the trash needs to go out, the trash goes out. And literally, our team is here to support you in any way, whether that's a coach at your event whose job is to make sure that you have a happy, successful, smooth hackathon, an HCM whose job is to help you make sure that that planning process goes well, or literally anybody else on the MLH team. Christine is here with us this weekend. Please say hi to them. And if you have not met Maria or Siddharth, they're also wonderful human beings who literally love hackathons, love this community, and want nothing more than to support all of you and make you as successful as possible. So with that, I'm Swift. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a little outfit called Major League Hacking. It is literally the greatest privilege I possibly could ask for to be able to help lead this community. I am so proud to have all of you here at Hackcon. I am so proud of what we've accomplished together, and I can't wait to see where we go in the year ahead and to see what I get to talk about next year at Hackcon, to see how far we've come and how this community has defined where we're going in the industry. Thank you, everybody. Happy. Oh. You know what I just realized, John? I think I forgot something.
I think I did too.
He did. So,
Time.
for those of you who might not know, every year MLH has a new mascot. It follows letters of the alphabet. So we have a character that is today an animal, a technology theme, and a name that all follow the same letter. So I'll go from the bottom row here. We had Frankie, the file system ferret. We had Gene, the glitchy giraffe, Hanson, the hardware hippo, and this past season's mascot, one of my favorites of all time, Izzy, the internet inchworm. Now, at Hackcon, we have some of our exclusive retro swag for all of you organizers to get. So if you do not have a Hanson or an Izzy t-shirt or stickers yet, they are here at Hackcon. You can get your hands on them. And in fact, the Izzy shirts, I know, are a collector's item because we produced the fewest of those of any generation of t-shirts since 2017. So get your hands on one while they're hot. But that's actually not the thing I forgot. The thing I actually forgot is we have a new mascot emerging. And some of you might have seen this in July, but I want to introduce you to your 2026 Hackathon season mascot, Jewel, the jumper wire jellyfish.
You show them through a different t-shirt color.
Now, you as organizers here at Hackcon are literally going to be the first people to get the new swag. Dylan, who is here with us today. I'm actually going to call on stage. He's going to be our first recipient of a T-shirt. We're getting our first Jewel shirt out there in the world. Yeah. So you'll see Jewel on all kinds of things, stickers, shirts. We have some of this swag. Yeah, there we go. Give it up for Dylan. Yes. So there are number one stickers for everybody that'll be out, but there are also some hidden swag items that you have to earn here at Hackcon by doing the things that we all know are so important around building communities. So if you want to get your hands on some Jewel swag, you can either get it at your own hackathons out this season, or you can work hard to make Hackcon an amazing community event and valuable for everybody, and earn one while you're here as well. The other thing that we have going on that I will preview just a little bit is John is going to be doing video testimonial interviews throughout the day-to-day. If you have an inspiring story to tell about your own journey, the journey of your community, anything along those lines, we'd love to hear it and capture it and think about turning it into one of those videos like the ones you just saw. There may be some tie-in to Jewel there, wink, wink, as well. So definitely think about that. Now, with that, I'm actually done. So thank you, everybody, and happy hacking.
Awesome. We have time for a couple of questions, not a ton. Raise your hand, and my colleague Amanda will run over to you with a mic. You can ask Swift anything about hackathons, AI, hair care routines, whatever you want. I see one right in the front here, Amanda. You're walking right by her. Oh, okay.
Gotta be fair. We made eye contact.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This is amazing. How do you think, so right now there's been a lot of folks talking about, there's a lot of open source models coming in from Kimi K2 as well as DeepSeek. How are you guys been thinking about leveraging potentially some of those open source models that exist out there? And when's Hackcon coming to Hong Kong?
Yes. Hong Kong I don't know about, but the other things I do know about, and I could talk about those. So open source models is a really important emerging trend right now. MLH is thinking actively about what we need to do to support hackers actually using these things. So first and foremost, we're partnering with the team at Gemini. We're obviously working very closely with them, doing things like what I talked about today during the keynote. There's some really amazing Gemma models. I actually use a bunch of them myself, and we, as part of the hardware lab, the devices that we have are ARM devices that support having Gemma models under the hood on them as well locally. So lots of support there. The other partnership that was on it was kind of hidden in the slides that I showed earlier, but there's this amazing company called OpenRouter that actually was founded by some alumni of this community. OpenRouter is basically a unified API for accessing tons of amazing models really easily. One of the things that they're really, really great at is helping people connect with various models rather than having to install them locally. They can just run them through this API, including many of the open source ones, which are free and available to use, as well as paid and proprietary ones like the ones that you would know by name. So lots of things coming there. The other thing that is a leading trend that I'm thinking about a lot, which this comes back to the open source models and will come out in the year ahead, is that fine-tuning training data and giving people access to GPUs or other environments where they can actually do advanced things with models is going to be really important as time goes on. The community is not there yet where everybody's going to be doing those things, but there are going to be a select few who do. And so that $50,000 in credits that I talked about earlier, those types of use cases are what that's going to be going to over the course of this coming season. But I expect that open source models, especially, and using those types of tools and having access to advanced computing power that's going to help you actually use them successfully as part of a hackathon project is going to be more important, because not every hackathon team can drive around with a giant rig like some of the ones that I have seen recently doing that. So more coming. Is early still for the entire, for everybody, but definitely thinking about it a lot and excited to get more resources out.
And we had a question right here in the front row.
Here you are.
Hi, so I'm Aisha, and we're from the University of Rhode Island, me and Lily. And so a lot of the people here are from existing hackathons, but we're co-founding ours from the start. So what is the best advice you have?
Well, first of all, you're in great company, because literally every person, every event here started in your shoes. I told that story Hackcon, where literally none of the 100 attendees had ever organized a hackathon before, and we were all learning together. So this is a safe space for you to learn. Just because you're surrounded by these other really, established, successful events, that's not any indication of not being in the right place. You are absolutely in the right place. The best way to learn is from the people around you in this room. The best advice I have for you is to really think hard about what you are trying to accomplish with your hackathon. A lot of people, when they're first starting a hackathon, they think about something flashy, something big. They're trying to impress. They're not thinking about building for their local community. You're going to know your community's needs better than anybody in the world. That might be you have a lot of beginners who haven't ever been to a hackathon before. You need to create a space that feels welcoming for them to come to their first one. That might be that you have a specific focus on design or hardware or whatever. You're going to know that better than anybody in the world. And so my actual best practical advice for you is really, really think hard about what your community needs and what you need to build to support them with that need. Don't just model what you're doing after other hackathons just because. Do it because it's right for you, right for your community. There's no such thing as a size or structure of an event that's wrong. MOH has a lot of opinions about what makes a great hackathon, but there are variations on that every year. And it might be a shorter event, it might be a longer event, it might be a different format. There's no right answers to any of this. And so, again, if you just stay true to what your community needs and you really focus very explicitly on serving them, the rest will follow. And ultimately, if you do a good job of serving your local community, that will foster a generation of leaders who want to rise and do the same thing for the people coming behind them. Many of the events in this room started as completely different concepts to what they are today, and completely different scales and formats and all those things. So we all start somewhere. There's no such thing as a wrong way. But the other practical advice I can give you, and it's kind of a shameless plug, but organize a Gemini Hack Night. We'll send you a box of swag, a playbook. We'll pay for pizza. It doesn't need to be overnight. It helps you build the confidence organizing events. It helps you build the initial community, get people excited about hackathons and the possibility of it. You come out of a short event like that and you're like, yeah, look at how much you accomplished in 6 hours. Imagine what you could do in 24 or 36, and with tons of other people around you helping to make it awesome. So please take advantage of those programs. And then also, please take advantage of the fact that you're here at Hackcon talking to everybody. Literally everybody in this room wants to talk about exactly this problem, which is building your community, and you're in good company here. So welcome.
Okay. We have time for one or two more.
Perfect. Got one right here in the middle.
Hi, thank you for the inspiring talk. I'm organizing a hardware hackathon, and so when I heard you guys were expanding your hardware lab, it really excited me. I wanted to ask you, what kind of inspired that decision to invest more in hardware, and where you see the future of technology integrated projects with the rise of AI?
Yeah. Can I ask which school you're organizing the Hackcon with?
I'm with Columbia University organizing Makes You.
Amazing. Yes. A big fan of Makes You. So I didn't even get this keynote is so long already. I didn't really get to insert any of this stuff, but I've been thinking a lot recently about hardware in particular. Now, regardless of how you feel about any of these things, and regardless of which country you live in the world, there is a huge focus right now on every country rebuilding domestic expertise in manufacturing and production of technology broadly. So that could mean making semiconductors, or that could mean opening factories to make cars, or anything like that. The reality of the situation in most countries, especially here in the United States, is that there are not even close to enough electrical engineers or people with the type of experience that you need in order to support the kind of ecosystem and economy growth that we're looking for in those sectors. And that all starts with inspiration, and it starts with education. And while hardware projects have always been a major part of hackathons, and in fact, if you look at the statistics, I would estimate that probably off the cuff, and I get your real stat if anybody wants this, but let's call it 30% of projects at all of your hackathons are hardware hackathons, or hardware projects already. Now, creating spaces where people can do not just kind of trivial hardware design, but true product design with a focus on the things that ultimately make great hardware projects. That's hard to do. There's some schools that have the infrastructure. John and I had the privilege of going out to University of British Columbia for NW Hacks back in January with the GitHub team, and they have an amazing ecosystem of hardware projects. Like almost all the videos that John and I shot there were people doing some really incredible things, like a piano that was AI enabled and would help you learn, or a Braille education device that literally had physical Braille points that would raise and you could learn how to do it. But they had the infrastructure and the community to support that. So this ties back to your question, which is that in order to foster that type of thing on the average campus, which is not going to have access to those type of resources, you need a place where people feel like they belong and inspired to do that. And so hardware hackathons like the one you're organizing are critical. Now, similar to what I said about AI, we need a new playbook here. The reality is that current hackathon formats are not conducive to the type of long-term thinking that you need to build products. And that doesn't mean that you can't accomplish it in a weekend, but it might mean that, like, let's say you wanted to make a smart microwave. You're not going to be at a hackathon, come up with that idea and be like, oh, I need a microwave. Like, where am I going to get that? Right? You have to think about those types of things in advance to be able to do it. And so my best tactical advice on hardware hackathons is that they do require a bit more forward thinking from attendees and a bit more hand holding from organizers to support people on that. MLH has been partnering with this company, DigiKey, who literally is one of the largest distributors of components and technology devices in the world. The hardware lab is basically fully stocked with things from DigiKey. Our partners over there, they're actively thinking about this problem. And so if you're organizing a hardware hackathon, I would be more than happy to connect you with their team to talk about that. And in fact, anybody who's doing that, I'm happy to connect the dots there. But ultimately, one of the things I want to do this year with DigiKey and with our community is write a specific hardware hackathon organizing guide. We have not officially announced since I were doing that yet, but it is something that I've been pushing really hard for and something I think should exist. And so if you're interested in helping to write that playbook, then we should talk about that. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, final question.
Final question.
They're going to get the hook out and pull me off here.
Hi, Swift. So a lot of the presentation today was more aligned towards people that are pursuing a computer science degree. How would you sort of convince people, or there's a lot of value in hackathons, right? So how would you sort of have someone that's pursuing a law degree or doing public policy or doing econ or bio go and attend some of these hackathons and gain some knowledge from them?
Yeah. So my honest answer to this, it's such a great question. It's like something I've been thinking about a lot, because those billion knowledge workers I talked about before, they're not computer scientists, as we've talked about and established. And they're a huge influx in our community, as well as all of the other students who are not pursuing computer science degrees that are going to be influx as well. I don't think our community is ready yet for hackathons that exclusively serve non-developer communities in the way that I think is necessary. But I think that there's some steps we can take to get there. And specifically what I mean by that is, you can imagine a world. Actually, let me read this in history. One of the first hackathons I ever went to was a writing hackathon. Literally, we showed up, and for 12 hours, the entire point was writing short stories or novellas. It was not coding. It was literally, there was nothing about it coding related at all. It was literally show up and write, and then read passages from what you wrote to the other attendees. But it used the hackathon model where you form teams. It was collaborative, creative. There were partners there, mentoring. So it created that same type of environment. That was in 2012, I want to say. Now, today is obviously a very different world, and you can do things like, we could have film hackathons where people use video models to literally generate videos and make really compelling stuff. Or, one of my buddies actually works at a huge law firm, and he's like their AI evangelist internally, who literally trains the lawyers on how to use modern AI tools as part of their job. So this is really, it's becoming accessible, and they use hackathons, to be clear, as a mechanism to do that, right? He literally has first-year associates coming in for 4-hour to 6-hour hackathons as part of their job, where they're literally using AI tools to solve legal problems that they encounter day to day in their work. So these are happening already organically. Our community eventually, again, will have to broaden. The reality is, we're going to literally double the size of this community overnight, and none of those people are going to be computer science students. They're not going to believe in the same things that we do, or have the same foundations or the same requirements. They're going to need different support, different structure. And so where that goes ultimately, I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out together. But there are things you can do today to start laying the groundwork for that change. First one, similar to having a policy around AI being okay and encouraged, we should have a policy around non-programmers coming to these events and participating. If somebody comes in and if they have not a programmer, they're an aspiring lawyer like I was, and they've never coded before, and they just vibe code a project and demo it, is that okay? I think yes. I think that should be encouraged. And I think that we should reward and incentivize those people. So maybe having things like a track for a non-computer science student who's coming to a hackathon, and we want to highlight their story, talking explicitly, encouraging it. finding opportunities for us to share that story with the rest of the world. Similarly, you could literally have a track in your hackathon for something that's not a code asset, right? Like you could have one for the best video or the best documentation or images or something like that. You could also bring fun mini event and games like what we did with the road shows to your hackathon, where you get people to actually use these things in a different environment. So anyway, my advice is to put a bow on it. Number one, be really clear about your policies. Number two, do direct outreach. Number three, highlight the people who are there from those diverse backgrounds that are not computer science students so that other people can follow in their footsteps. And four, I would just create things for them to do that teach them the mechanics of what is successful at hackathon, which is learning by doing, producing something tangible that people can touch and feel and use and see the potential in the future of. But it's a playbook we're writing. I expect a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, we'll have a completely different, set of hackathons in this room, where there will be hackathons that are not traditionally like the ones we have today. But I don't think that the community is quite there yet. I think we're really figuring those things out. And what you do at your events is going to help define where that goes ultimately. It's a great question.
Awesome. Thank you, Swift. Give him another round of applause, everybody.